You guys, thank you so much for coming to hear about the future of Montana's reproductive rights and the relationship of the Montana State Legislature to what we can and cannot do with our bodies. Unfortunately, there is a relationship there, and I want to talk about some specific things coming up that we can all do to make sure that we have bodily autonomy and that abortion and birth control stay safe after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. My name is Marilyn Marler. I am a representative from House District 90 in Missoula to the state legislature. I'm going to talk about how the legislature works. It's going to be like a main focus of this talk, and I'll talk about why. I am in my I'm in my second term right now and running for my third term in the Montana House of Representatives, and I serve as the House Democrat Caucus Chair. There's only 33 of us out of 100 in the State House, and I'm proud to be in a leadership role so that we can try to maximize our productivity there. Before serving in the legislature, I was on Missoula City Council for 12 years, and after 12 years was a good enough amount of time to spend on the City Council. I recommend that everybody do it. It's important service and very meaningful, but I wanted to try something different and learn about new issues, so now I'm serving at the state legislature. We got the hideous news this summer that the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, which a lot of people did not think would happen, but it did. And a lot of people have been saying, don't worry about it. Abortion isn't outlawed by the Supreme Court. It's just being turned over to the states so the states can decide. That is not a consolation at all, and the government should not be making this kind of decision for people. But what happened when the Supreme Court turned it over to the states, a lot of states had laws already in effect that if Roe v. Wade was overturned, then abortion would be illegal in those states. But this is showing states where abortions are banned after Roe v. Wade or are likely in the short term to make abortion illegal. And the blue are the states where it's likely to remain legal, and the gray ones are uncertain states. And like Montana is in the uncertain. Whoever did this research and put this graph together is watching what's happening at the state levels, and I'm going to talk about the makeup of our state government and why we are this gray uncertain. There's a very likely chance, or I shouldn't say likely, there's a very real chance that although abortion today now is legal in Montana because of our state constitution, that will change after the next legislative session. Okay, this is a real pivotal point for Montana and for the country. I'm going to focus on Montana, otherwise I will freak out if I try to focus on everything all at once. So I'm going to try to identify things that we can do to make this go the right way. So we can make a difference if we're organized and we work hard. What's the next? We have to affect the Montana State Legislature right now, and there's one Supreme Court race that's important. I'm going to tell you how we do that, and it's not that hard. It just takes work. It's things that you've heard of, like donate money, donate time, knock on doors, and vote. So everybody here, I think, lives in Montana, but people maybe grew up in different states. So I want to talk about what the actual legislature in Montana is like. So the way that states regulate abortion, and every state has a little bit different rules about abortion, it's the legislature. Every state has a legislature. Sometimes they're called the state assembly, but it's the state legislature. The legislature is the body of elected people that makes laws for each state, and every state there's in the legislative branch of government, just like in the federal government, there's two chambers. There's the Senate and there's the House. I serve in the House. There's also the Senate. This is our beautiful state building in Helena. It is an honor to go and serve there, but I cry a lot of days when I go there during the session. Every state is a little bit different. So I'm going to talk about how Montana's is made up. And there's a lot of different ways that state governments work, and where I grew up, the state legislature is a full-time job and they're kind of always in session. It's not like that in Montana. We have a citizens legislature, so most of us have day jobs or are retired, and then we're in session sometimes. So let's look at this. Just relative to the other levels of government, there's of course the federal government that has a president and the Congress has the House and the Senate. The state has a governor and the legislature, House and Senate. Then that sits above the county commissioners, and in Montana, all the counties have 3 commissioners each, and in some parts of the state, there's city governments. If a group of people decide to incorporate and become a city, then they can have a city government, and those are even various across the state of Montana. They're all different. Okay, so in Montana, I'm going to tell you some things that are specific to Montana that might not be the same if you talk with friends in other states. But in the Senate, we have 50 senators, and each senator serves for 4-year terms. Each term is for 4 years. And they can serve 2 of those. The House is made up of 100 members, so we have less power than an individual senator. They have twice as much voting power. And our terms are only 2 years. So every 2 years we run for re-election, and we can serve 4 of those. So you can do 8 years as a senator, 8 years as a House member, and then that's your term limit. So the Senate districts equal 2 House districts. So I'm in a House district, and I represent House District 90. Katie Sullivan represents House District 89, and Senator Ellie Boldman is the Senate district that sits on top of that. So that's how these are structured around the state. So everybody in this room is represented by a senator and a representative. And the House districts have 10,000 people each. And this is a pretty map, but it doesn't show up quite right on this, but you get the gist. Because it's based on the number of people, some of the districts in the east are huge because there's not that many people out there. In Missoula, we have many House districts. We have like 10 House districts here in Missoula. Okay, so how do we function? How do we do the lawmaking? Every 2 years, so the election is in November, and then the next January, we get sworn in and we're in session. And the session is for 90 days, and during that session is when laws happen. And that's when we're voting on things. Since Roe v. Wade, I've been getting constituent emails saying, please vote against anything that restricts access to abortion, and there's nothing to vote on right now. So it's important to me that people know that, and I write back to people and I say, I'm on your side on this, we're not in session, there's no lawmaking happening. In between sessions, we refer to that as the interim session, and we get together in committees and we talk about policies and we hear reports from the different agencies across the state. For example, I serve on the Environmental Quality Council, and I serve on a really interesting one called the Private Forest Taxation Advisory Committee. It was awesome. All that stuff is really important, but it's not like, a hot topic every day. There's like regular government that goes on. So we're still in the interim. The governor, however, has the authority to call the legislature into a special session at any time if he thinks that there's enough votes, because we could override him, I think. Or if 2/3 of the legislators want to have a special session, they can force the issue. And there have been a few times since I've been elected when people have tried to get us there for a special session, and it hasn't happened yet. And there was talk of the governor or the legislature calling a special session to talk about the overturning of Roe v. Wade and how we can put all the restrictions in place as soon as possible, and they didn't have the votes. It never came to a vote because we talked to each other, and so that didn't happen, thank goodness, but there's still time. Once we're in session, whether it's the 90 days or whether it's in a special session, then we can pass laws. So right now, laws are not being passed. Laws are being drafted, but they're not being passed. All right, so I have some good news about the overturning of Roe v. Wade, if that's, right now, abortion, birth control, things covered by Roe v. Wade. I'll specifically say abortion, although there are other things in there too. That remains protected and legal in the state of Montana because we have an awesome constitution. The Montana Constitution guarantees our right to privacy. So in the past, when the legislature has tried to outlaw abortion, they get taken to court and it's ruled unconstitutional. And it happens all the time. It's happening right now. Okay, that was the good news. We have a great constitution. The bad news is that if Republicans who are in the majority party right now keep saying openly that they want to change the state constitution. One of them called it a liberal rag and says it needs to be rewritten. And there were many bills sponsored by Republicans last session to change different aspects of the Montana Constitution. So that's like what we have right now. And it takes a supermajority of the Montana legislature to change the Constitution. They're 2 seats away from a supermajority, so I forget, because everybody's looking at me, what the actual number is. Maybe someone can remind me what's the number, but
2/3 of 150?
Yeah, two-thirds, yeah. Thanks. This is really scary. And we're going into a midterm election, which is usually not good for the party who has the president. You know, Democrats are already in a minority in the state government here in Montana. Biden's at the federal level, and it's historically not good for the party that's in charge federally. Okay. So, and here's the current makeup of the Senate and the House. So there's 50 in the Senate, and there's 31 Republicans and 19 Democrats. And in the House, there's 67 Republicans and 33 Democrats. It's pretty depressing if you're a Democrat. This legislature passed 3 anti-abortion bills. I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so I'm gonna talk for a moment about the fact that I know Republicans in my life, and I think a lot of Republican people believe that the government shouldn't make their decisions, and even though they're a Republican, I know Republicans are pro-choice also. So I'm going to talk about Republicans, but I'm talking about voting record of elected Republicans in Montana. I hope there are Republicans here, and I hope that you'll talk to your fellow Republican people about how big of an impact this could possibly have. In the legislature, the Republicans always vote against reproductive health. And you don't have to take my word for it. There are different rankings. Well, you could go through and look up the vote on every single bill. It's hard to know which bills to look up and where to find it, but there are groups that do scorecards, and one of them is the Family Foundation. You can Google this scorecard, and it ranks legislators on a bunch of different bills, like did you support tax credit scholarships for private schools, save women's sports, which is an anti-trans youth bill, requiring ultrasounds before abortion, a referendum for this born alive infant protect, these are anti-abortion bills, anti-trans bills, giving public money to religious schools bills. So that's what that organization likes. They put together a scorecard. You can Google it and find it, and it has every legislator's name. I had to do 2 screen grabs to do it. So there's all kinds of things. It's making me so mad. Just go to the next slide. It's terrible. And we were there for 90 days while all this was going on, and it's hard. It's really hard. So that's what that group likes. And I counted on that list, and 56 of the 150, there's 150 legislators. For 56 of the R's got 90 to 100% positive voting score, and they always vote as a block on the abortion bills. And 11 of them, I don't know, these are the liberal Republicans, I guess they only got 70 or 80, I don't know. I don't know why I'm laughing, it's not funny, I'm laughing because it's upsetting. So of the 33 Democrats that were ranked in that study, I gotta remind myself who got 17% and have a talk with them. I don't know what they voted for, but most Democrats got a 0, and I got a 0, and I was pretty proud of that 0. All right, so back to the good news is that we're in an election year. So this is something that we can actually affect if we pay attention and we get engaged. I feel like when I was on the Missoula City Council, everybody knew what was going on in the city council. Everybody could name most of the city council candidates, and they knew what was on the agenda for the week and the subdivision of du jour. But I feel like in the legislature, it's a little bit out of sight, out of mind, because we're only in session every 90 days, and it happens in Helena. And then there's so much that happens that it's hard to track. Like, people will track their issue, but not everything. So this is a great opportunity to make sure that this goes the right way. We cannot let them get a supermajority. We have to hold on to as many seats as we can for the Democrats, and hopefully gain some, but definitely not lose 2. It's only 2 seats. Senate is a little bit different than the House. In the Senate, they're 4-year terms, and they're staggered. So half the Senate is up every 2 years, okay? And then for the House of Representatives, all of us have to be reelected every year. So I've heard people make a joke like that the House of Representatives is like going to a kegger, but going into the Senate is like being at the wine bar. So, because they have a little bit more stability and experience or whatever. But it's a pretty rowdy place in the House of Reps. Okay. We have 4 months, less than 4 months now, to do some important work. And some of these elections are won by thin margins. And some of these races are very important and very close. All right, so right now there's this is our beautiful, beautiful House chamber in Helena. And right now, people across the state are running for re-election. It's happening now. I hope you start paying attention if you're not already. So this is past the stage of writing letters. It's past the stage of going to marches. I'm a little frustrated, and I have to, not comment every time I see people doing a march. I want to be like, you throw a house party for a candidate, or, tell your friends to vote or something. I know direct action is important and meaningful, and it can feel good, but it's not going to be the thing that changes. There's no march that's going to change the governor's mind. There's no march that's going to change the mind of certain sitting legislators who are likely to get reelected. But we can change the outcome of the election if we work hard at it. So we've got to protect the state constitution, and when I go door to door, I say I'm going to protect the state constitution, and we have to prevent the supermajority of the GOP, because they will take away a lot of things that are in the Constitution. They've been talking about it. They've been trying it. Next one. Every session, there are bills, and some of them pass, but there are bills that give personhood status to embryos. There are bills introduced to outlaw abortion. There are things passed to ban any post-fertilization birth control. These are coming from conservative Christian lawmakers who probably never had menstruation or miscarriages explained to them. I don't think they understand basic biology. Otherwise, I don't know how you could stand up and say the things that people say about this. And these are things that even impact in vitro fertilization processes. It's just really sad, and the government has no call being in people's lives to that degree. This is private medical decisions that are based on a lot of things, not just religion. Across the country, surveys say that 70% and up of people support safe and legal abortion access. And my understanding is that the polling in Montana is the same. Most people support that as private medical care and family decision-making. And a lot of this comes down to, sad medical stories that people shouldn't have to relive, testifying to the government for why this should not be banned. But the thing is that people don't vote. And that's why I wanted to give this talk, just to talk about how important it is at the state legislature. Sometimes people don't vote if there's not a president or a senator, or there's no presidential or governor campaign candidates right now. I think there's 1 out of 3 county commissioners that are going to be on the ballot. There's not even city council races. So a lot of people who might vote in a presidential year won't just go out and vote for the legislature. And that's, we have the voting records are public information, not who you vote for, but whether people show up to vote or not, and where they're registered. That's all public information. So voting on a non-presidential year or a non-senator year is very low. So that's why I felt it so important to talk about this. And the reason that although the legislature keeps passing these laws, they don't go into effect because we've had Democratic governors for 16 years, or because they get taken to court and the Supreme Court or the District Court say that it's not constitutional. So next slide. If you remember Brian Schweitzer, he would do the big veto branding. I'm kind of I don't always love political theater, but I loved this so much. I thought this was great. So he vetoed a lot of things. Steve Bullock vetoed a lot of bad bills. And this year, when Governor Gianforte was elected, they brought everything that had ever been vetoed in the last 16 years and brought it to the legislature and passed. So now we've got, this happened in April last year when they did the bill signing ceremony. These bills are passing, 3 specifically passed, and the governor signed them, but they have not gone into effect yet because Planned Parenthood Advocates of Montana and I think the ACLU and some other groups have filed claims against the state and said this is not constitutional, you can't do it. So it's in court right now, and either the Supreme Court or District Court. I am not a lawyer, I am a botanist, but I know they're going to court. But I'm doing my best here with the court part. Okay, and this, I could have done a better job with the screen grab, but here's a story from yesterday, or possibly the day before, that was in the Montana Free Press, that our governor is trying to intervene in these lawsuits and file amicus briefs and everything and say, no, we have to outlaw abortion right now and interfere with this whole process, and the Supreme Court said, no, stop it. So right now we've got our court systems where this is gonna play out. And that was just a couple days ago. So what do? We have to be strategic, we have to be organized, and we have to help elect pro-choice candidates. And I'm just gonna say it, we just had our platform convention in Butte 2 weeks ago, where we every couple of years we check in on the Democratic state platform, and we affirmed and put more explicit language that our party supports the right to have an abortion and use birth control as a human right. And the other party did the opposite. They said that they want to ban abortion in all cases. So if this is an important issue, you could just go and, even if you just pledged to vote for Democrat candidates this year because this issue, that would be great. But we have to, that's an individual action you can take, but I'm hoping because you came to this, thank you for coming to this, that you're interested in doing a little more. And it all adds up. We all have something to do. There's always something that we can do. Okay, so right now in the House, check the time, all 100 seats are up for election. I think I mentioned that. There's 29 seats that were not challenged, and they are automatically going to be Republicans. Yeah, there are some parts of the state where couldn't get a Democrat to run, and that's how it is. I personally called a few people and said, will you at least run just so there's a Democrat on the ballot? And it's hard, when you've run a race and you've lost, it's hard. And so there's 29 that are automatically going to become Republican seats. We have 3 where Democrats are running unchallenged, so that's good, we've got those. But that means there's 69 seats that are in play. So already we're at a more comprehensible number than we were at the beginning. Some seats are considered safe Democrat seats. I represent a district in Missoula, House District 90, where the South Hills, Lewis and Clark neighborhoods, it has voted Democrat for a long time, and I hope to earn that vote again, and I'm working on it. I'm not taking it for granted, but it's considered a safe seat. There are some seats that are considered safe Republican seats, and those were the ones where people were like, I'm not gonna run against that person in a safe Republican seat. And then there are some seats that are kind of a toss-up. So how are we gonna help people win? Everybody has time. Maybe you don't have a lot of time. Everybody has money. Maybe you don't have a lot of money. So everybody's personal situation is you're here with time and you're here with money, but we all can look at what we have to offer. Some of us have large social circles. Some of us have good skills. But we have to use our time and our money and our skills strategically in these tight races, right, to get the votes. And not to give away the punchline, but the candidate with the most votes wins. That's how it comes down to that. And it doesn't even take that, sometimes we're talking about, that's what we're talking about. And it makes a difference if you give a candidate $20, or if you host a house party for them, or anything that you can do. Go door to door with them, put up a yard sign, and find 5 other people to put up a yard sign. Okay, so if you would like to volunteer on some of these tight races in the Missoula area, a good person for you to contact is a guy named Dylan Sarb, and I'm going to put his information up in a second. And he works for the MDLCC, and just as a side note, there's so many acronyms, but the MDLCC, in case you didn't know, and why would you, it stands for the Montana Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee, and I have been begging them to find a different name, like something like the Blue Wave, or something. But this is a committee of people, some elected, some not elected, that do fundraising and campaign work for the state legislature explicitly. And it is a branch of the Democrat Party, but it's not synonymous with the Democratic Party in the state level. Okay, so contact Dylan Sarb and just say, I am so-and-so, and I just want to do whatever I can to help with a pro-choice candidate in Missoula. He will know what you're talking about. And then anything that you sign up for, he'll tell you, or whoever, you might get a candidate that day. He might patch you through to Jonathan or to some of the other candidates I'm going to mention. And they'll say, we're so excited, you're going to help. Here's the events that are coming. It'll be things like making phone calls, or going door to doors, or helping with a fundraiser. And these are all there's a million different things. Just to put this event on tonight, there's 7 people helping to put this on. I'm up here with a microphone, but I'm gonna thank the team at the end. But there people bring food, you have to have a venue, you have to get the invitations out. All that is work, and it's done by volunteers like us. Okay, so, and somebody after my last presentation specifically asked me to clarify that there's 2 different kinds of phone calling. There's persuasion calling, which is where you call people and you're ready to engage with them about why you think your candidate is great. You're I'm calling to really encourage you to vote for this person, and you might know that they tend to be a vote Republican or on the fence or whatever, but you might be prepared for some little back and forth. Don't ever get in a fight, etc. Again, there's training. But that's one kind. The persuasion phone calling is one kind of phone calling. The other one is get out the vote. That's GOTV, stands for get out the vote. So, and that's just calling and saying, did you turn in your ballot? Okay, I'm with the Monica campaign or the Jonathan campaign, and I really need you to get that in, and giving instructions. So if you're more of a conflict-averse person, you can do get out the vote calling. Knocking doors, dropping literature on doors, helping with a fundraiser, and this is kind of a fun one. And contrary to what you hear, money is not the most significant thing. It is important. We have to have money to run our campaigns, but you can't just look at who's raised more money and then know from that who's winning or who's going to win. Sometimes really well-funded candidates lose. So the maximum in a state legislative race is each person can give $400 maximum to a candidate. And that, in the scheme of things, it used to be 180, but the last legislature bumped it up to 400, which I did not vote for because I don't think we need more money in politics. But it's now 400, but that's still a small enough amount of money where 20 or 50 bucks makes a difference, right? And if you can give 400 to a candidate or a couple of candidates, that's wonderful. And if you have more money, you can give to the MDLCC because there's no limit on what you can give to the MDLCC. And then you can encourage your friends to donate because it adds up pretty quickly. You have a house party, everyone agrees to bring 20 bucks, adds up. Donors do not have to live in Montana. Donors do not have to live in the district where they live. My mom maxed out to me. She's my mom. My dad voted for Trump and he maxed out to me because he loves me. Isn't that sweet? Yeah, so you can ask everyone. If I was more organized, I'd ask all my high school teachers. Okay, so now I'll talk about specifically how to donate. You can, it depends on how you feel comfortable. You can mail a check to a candidate. You can usually find them pretty easily on the internet. That's part of the job, is to like get your face out there on the internet so that people can Google you and find out where to send money. You can go to a fundraiser and put money in a jar or write a check at the fundraiser. You can donate online, which is actually a really good way to go. So the way it works is, for me, usually, I'll see something in the news or online that just makes me furious, and I'll be like, who's running against this person? And I find the person. This was when our sitting state legislator from Missoula made these comments how uterus doesn't belong to the woman, belongs to him, apparently. And he is running against Willis Curdy. So then I went to, you log on to actblue.com, and the blue refers to Democrats. And they vet you before they let you sign up on their platform. They check you out and make sure that you're actually a Democrat. And you can search for whoever you want, search for Willis Curdy, search for Jonathan Carlin, some of the other folks. And then you choose an amount, blah, blah, blah. After you do it once, it says you want to save your credit card information or whatever. And it's all taken care of, and it's very easy. And treasurers like it, and then you can share that with other people, and they can donate too. So then there's, I talked about certain kinds of volunteerism, door knocking, phone calls that you can get, the standard trainings. There's also things that you might want to do if you have special skills, like if you're a really great cook or a graphic designer or really good at communication specialist like my friend Stacy, or a finance director like Miranda. Like, these are all volunteer jobs that are really important. Do you enjoy cooking for crowds? Do you love going to Costco and filling up 2 carts full of delicious snacks? Do you know lots of people? Like, this is a specialized thing. Not everybody knows a lot of people. Some people know everybody. So you could really help out that way by helping people raise money. And you know, from your friend circle, you know what people are interested in. So you can invite them over and help them be a better voter and help us all get the kind of Montana that we want to have. So, what are you going to do next? And this is a real question for everybody here in the room. I'm going to ask you to choose a candidate or just the MDLCC in general. And you can contact Dylan at montanademocrats.com once you've figured out, or you can call me and I'll help you get set up, or you can call Jonathan, we'll get you connected. And I want you really to think right now, we'll take a moment and think about, like, how important is this to us, that our daughters and nieces have bodily autonomy, and ourselves if we are reproductive age, which we aren't all. It's pretty important. Okay, and then think about what you're able to. So is this something you could donate some time or money once a month or once a week? Or do you want to quit your job and work on the Marilyn Marler for Legislator campaign? Because we have until November 8th, and that's all we have. So my commitment, I'm going to say what my commitment is, and then I would like you to go home and think about your commitment. My commitment is that I'm going to work as hard as I can to get reelected. I am committed to raising $10,000. $5,000 is for my race. My race is not that expensive. It's mostly the yard signs, flyers, website, and a big mailing to go out with the ballots. And I'm raising $5,000 to share with the other candidates in the tight races. So some of my money goes to Jonathan and some other folks. We're allowed to do that. I will promote my pro-choice colleagues every time that I can. This is not just a race about me, it's a race about good candidates across the states and in different towns. And if I am elected, the prize is that I will move to Helena and spend 90 days fighting for all of our rights and for the environment. Oh, thank you. That's really kind of you. We have 2 months. 2 months. Figure out something that you can do and not lose your sanity for 2 months that you can help with. So I want you to write down your commitment, not right now, but figure out something that you can donate, one time or once a month, or I'm going to donate 1 day a month to do on a campaign. Everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody. A lot of people can do one volunteer thing per month for 2 months. Or you might say, well, I'm going to convince 10 people in Montana who I know personally to vote pro-choice. And it could be someone in a different town. It could be, think of all your friends. Find out what district they live. And you can Google, you can put in an address and find out who's the legislator for that. And it would be nice if before everybody left, if you don't know, if you would Google who's your state representative and find out if you're in a close district or not a close district. Or you can even say something like, well, I can't do all that because I'm very busy at work, but I'm going to take a yard sign, and I'll take 3 yard signs, and I'm going to find homes for those yard signs. All these things add up. Once you figure out what you're committed to doing, you can write it out and put it on your refrigerator. Don't laugh, it makes a difference. Stay focused and try to bring other people into that. I'm going to volunteer 2 weekends a month. Will you do it with me? Huge difference. You've doubled the effort right there. And I know that we can do this, but we have to keep showing up and working. I'm going to talk real quick about some Missoula elections, but there are, Great Falls, Helena, Anaconda, there's some real tight races across the state. And we're going to have this presentation given, I have a candidate in Great Falls named Layla, Layla Graham, who's going to do this workshop tomorrow night in Great Falls. Someone's going to do it in Helena. So here's Missoula. I know it's a lot to look at, but this is showing all of our House districts in green. I don't know why there's a circle around 100. I represent 90. So we have a lot of House reps. And these are our incumbent House representatives. Some of them are termed out or decided that they don't want to do it again. So here's the slate of pro-choice candidates. Jonathan Carlin, yay. Me, yay. So all the Democrats are pro-choice candidates. Some of these are historically safe seats, some are not. So the races that we're focusing now are Tom France, Jonathan Carlin, is it Gary Stein, and Devin Jackson. So see, and it's a lot easier to think about 4 people than 100 people, right? And we've got 1 of the 4 in the room, so that just leaves 3 mystery people, and I've met them all, and they're good people. So Jonathan is west side of town, Frenchtown. Tom France is by the Y in Grant Creek. And Stein is running for this East Missoula to Sealy Lake, and that's a tight race. And then Devin Jackson is running for the seat that's currently held by Brad Cheetah. Yeah, so it would be great to flip that to a blue seat just because Brad Cheetah used to be in that seat. So there's 6 Senate seats. These are the incumbents. Remember, only half of the seats are up for re-election, or it's staggered. So only 3 of those would be up for election. Does that make sense? Yeah, so only half of these have to run again. There are 2 pro-choice candidates that are up for election. Olson is considered a safe seat. She was in the House, now she's running for the Senate. And Willis Curdy is probably going to be the most expensive and most closely watched race in the state. Willis Curdy is a really good guy with great values for the environment, conservation, families, unions, women's rights, and he's running against Brad Cheetah. Okay, and this is the big Senate seat here. And right now it's held by Diane Sands, who's she's been a great legislator for many years, termed out, retiring, and so it's possible for it to remain a blue seat, but Cheetah, I don't know what to say. So we'll just go to the next slide. And so we've winnowed it down to just 6 races out of all that. Oh my God, what are we gonna do? It's completely terrible. We've got it down to just 6 races here in Missoula that you could have a really big impact. The house party that you guys are throwing for those candidates is huge. They're gonna meet people, they're gonna make money. It's just enormous. If you can, give money to Jonathan, and it's very easy because we have the QR codes. It's very important that everyone votes for Ingrid Gustafson. And there is another person who's Brown, who has no legal background, who's running for the Supreme Court. So I really want to thank you guys for coming and asking questions. Not a lot of people know the nuts and bolts. People grew up in different states where the legislature is different, so I just wanted to share this, and hopefully it gets out. So thanks for your attention. Thanks, guys.